Japan is known for. Japan is known worldwide for its traditional arts, including tea ceremonies, calligraphy, and flower arranging. The country has a legacy of distinctive gardens, sculpture, and poetry. Japan is home to more than a dozen UNESCO World Heritage Sites and is the birthplace of sushi, one of its most famous, it with corresponding photos or icons. So here is the 13 reasons why Japan is a must-visit place. Number 1 is Shinto. Shinto is widely considered to be the native religion of Japan. While most locals would deny being religious at all, Shinto traditions and festivals play a huge role in everyday life. Number 2 is customer service. Japan's service industry sets the global standard for excellent service, and one of the best parts is they're not doing it in the hopes that you'll leave a good tip. Number 3 is kimono. Traditional fashions such as kimono are unique to Japan and one thing that sets it apart from other cultures. Number 4 is anime and manga. Astro Boy, written in the 1950s, is one of the world's first manga. The comic was admired for its progressive style, and decades later, manga and anime would grow to become one of the country's most iconic exports. Number 5 is geisha, geiko, hangyoku, and maiko. Geisha are professional female entertainers, although historians believe the first geisha were male. These women entertain anyone who can afford their services with conversation, dance performances, and games at high-class restaurants and private parties. Number 6 is earthquakes and natural disasters. Japan reports more earthquakes than any other country in the world. It can experience dozens of small earthquakes each month. Number 7. Japanese cuisine. Aside from favorites loved around the world, such as edamame, soybeans, sushi, and miso, there are a lot of uniquely Japanese dishes even the most adventurous foodie might need cuisine to try. Number 8. Bowing. The Japanese learned how and when to bow from a young age, and they used bows among themselves to mean anything from thank you to I'm sorry. Number 9 is sumo wrestling. Sumo wrestling began in Japan hundreds of years ago during the Edo period, but its roots may go back even farther to ancient Shinto rituals. Japan is the only country where sumo wrestling really caught on, and it is the still only place where you find the sport practiced on a professional level. Number 10 is tatami. Tatami flooring originated as small, mobile seating for the nobility during the Heian period. By the early Edo period, the lower classes even started using tatami mats. Number 11. Tea ceremony. The tea ceremony was introduced to Japan by Chinese monks over 1,000 years ago, but over the centuries, the Japanese tea ceremony has become such a unique and distinctive art that the two now have few similarities. Number 12. Pachinko. Pachinko is a type of slot machine that was invented in Japan in the 1920s. Instead of trying to get matching pictures, players hope that the metal balls loft into the machine land in the right price slots. Lastly, kawaii culture. No place on earth appreciates cuteness as Japan does. From adorable mascots and warning signs to pop culture icons and advertisements, kawaii-ness is one of the most prized attributes a teen can have. Looking forward, let me discuss to you the communication modes in Japan. Now let's start with the verbal. So there is 3 categories. The first one is indirect communication. Indirect communication is rely less on words to convey context and are more attentive to the posture, expression, and tone of voice of the speaker to draw meaning from a conversation. In order to maintain harmony throughout conversation and prevent a loss of face, the best way of navigating around this rhetoric to find the underlying meaning is to check for clarification several times using open-ended questions. Next is refusals. The cultural preoccupation with the saving face and being polite means that the Japanese may wish to avoid giving a flat no or negative response even when they don't agree with you. Therefore, focus on hints or hesitation Listen closely to what they say, but also pay careful attention to what they don't say and implicitly mean. It's a good idea to clarify and double-check your understanding. Lastly is laughter. When communicating bad news, a Japanese person may smile and laugh to diffuse the uncomfortable situation. People may also cover their mouth when they giggle. It is rare to see big bursts of laughter with corresponding gestures. Next is communication is the nonverbal. So there is 13 categories. First one is physical contact. The appropriacy of physical contact varies depending on the context in Japan. You can expect a Japanese person to immediately apologize if they bump into or brush against you by accident. Second is body language. Japanese do not gesture very much while speaking as their body language is largely restrained. Instead, they often hold their hands together as they speak, which prevents them from gesturing throughout conversation. Third is facial expressions. It is common for Japanese people to maintain a placid expression and smile during an interaction regardless of the topic. Fourth is silence. Silence is an important and purposeful tool used in Asian communication. Pausing before giving a response indicates that someone has applied appropriate thought and consideration to the question. Fifth is beckoning. It is impolite to beckon people who you are not close friends with. Beckoning is done by facing the palm of the hand to the ground and waving one's fingers towards oneself. Individual fingers should not be used. 6 is eye contact. The Japanese avoid eye contact with strangers as it is considered rude to stare. 7th is feet. Displaying the soles of your feet is considered rude. 8 is inhaling. When a Japanese person inhales air through their teeth, it usually implies disagreement. 9 is bowing. The Japanese avoid eye contact with strangers as it is considered rude to stare. 10th is waving. Shaking the hand with the palm facing forward from the side to side means no. 11th is gestures. A Japanese person may clasp their hands together in front of their chest when apologizing or accepting something. 12th is pointing. Pointing is done using the entire hand unless referring to oneself, in which case they place their index finger on their nose. Lastly is nodding. Nod to acknowledge what is said. However, this does not always mean they agree or understand. It is primarily a gesture made out of politeness. After communication modes, let's now proceed to the communication practice and styles of Japanese. Japanese communication style reflects the value placed on maintaining harmony. The Japanese are non-confrontational and will really directly decline requests. Instead, they will reply, "It is inconvenient" or "It is under consideration." They do not criticize, insult, put people on the spot, or do anything that might cause embarrassment and thus loss of face. While many may find it uncomfortable, long pauses are expected during conversation. This usually means the other person is reflecting on what has been said. It is not necessary to fill the silence with small talk, and you should never interrupt when someone is speaking. Avoid using excessive hand gestures or making quirky facial expressions. Japanese do not consider it rude to ask personal questions, such as about a person's material status or to comment on a person's weight. It is important, however, not to ask questions that may cause the respondent to lose face. Traditionally, people in Japan place great importance on physical space. They do not like to be crowded, nor do they like to be touched by strangers. Touching an adult on the head is considered taboo and implies a condescending attitude. Direct eye contact is perceived as an invasion of personal space, so when engaged in conversation, it is best to focus on the chin or thigh. Always bow when greeting someone and avoid physical contact, such as hugging or kissing the cheek. So, that's the communication modes, practices, and style in Japan. I am Shaira Fikilente, telling you that Japan is the most unique country. Arigatou gozaimasu, sayonara.